Manuela loved helping others since childhood. She constantly carried kittens in her arms, fed street puppies, and, together with her mother, made a bird feeder which she filled with fresh grain every morning. The girl has a kind and compassionate heart, the neighbors said about Manuela. It was no wonder that she dreamed of becoming a doctor since childhood. She wanted to save lives and comfort those in need. She didn't know where this desire came from. Perhaps it was in her blood. Manuela had no father. He died when she was 5. Her mother, grief-stricken, took her to her grandmother Camila, who lived in a small village on the southern coast. Manuela remembered the big old house that smelled of salt and reminded her of a ship filled with interesting and mysterious things. The girl loved to climb up to the attic and spend long hours there, looking at old toys, her grandmother's dresses, mirrors, porcelain figurines, a kaleidoscope, seashells, and beautiful jewelry gifted by her late grandfather, which were kept in carved boxes. Manuela and her grandmother lived in perfect harmony, and she remembered this time as a bright and warm period in her life. Then her mother came to take her back, and they returned to their hometown to continue living as before, but without her father. Manuela often asked to visit her grandmother again, but her mother had to work a lot and couldn't take time off. Gradually, the girl got used to being just the two of them. She started school, made friends with her classmates, and met up with her girlfriends after school. Usually, the girls played hospital, and Manuela was always the doctor. A few times, Grandma Camila came to visit them. She brought Manuela seashells from the sea and other souvenirs. The girl was very happy when this happened. Grandma enjoyed playing different games with Manuela, but she especially loved when the girl pretended to be a doctor and playfully treated her for the most terrible diseases. When Grandma Camila left, Manuela eagerly awaited their next meeting and missed her very much. One morning, when Manuela was 10 years old, sad news arrived. The old woman had passed away in her sleep. Manuela didn't go to school and cried all day. Then she and her mother went to the funeral and stayed overnight in the old grandmother's house, which remained exactly as she remembered it. That night she couldn't sleep for a long time. It felt strange that the house was there, but Grandma Camila was no longer in it. Manuela tossed and turned inside. She thought that if she were already a doctor, she could have saved her grandmother. "Why aren't you sleeping, dear?" her mother asked sleepily. Manuela told her everything. Hearing her daughter's words, her mother explained that the girl shouldn't blame herself. Only after talking with her dearest person did Manuela finally fall asleep. She didn't want to leave her grandmother's house so soon. She hadn't yet visited her favorite attic, but her mother needed to return to work. "Who will live in Grandma Camila's house now?" Manuela asked. Her mother shook her head and replied, "No one. We'll just lock the door and go home." "But I like it here." "Let's stay," Manuela suggested. Her mother smiled wearily at her daughter. "I like it here too. The house is big and spacious, not like our apartment. And the sea is very close. But I can't find a suitable job here. And you need to go to university." Manuela nodded sadly. They left the day after the funeral. Manuela never returned to her grandmother's house. The girl studied diligently, imagining her future in the brightest colors, but her dream of becoming a doctor was not destined to come true. Unfortunately, Manuela couldn't get into university, and her mother couldn't afford to pay for her education alone. So, she suggested that Manuela take nursing courses, which she did. After completing the courses, she got a job at the city hospital. Patients loved her for her kind heart and compassion. She always treated each of them with empathy, trying to help and support them with kind words. Manuela liked her job, but she was very tired and often cried at night. Sometimes she dreamed of the old house by the sea and Grandma Camila, whom she still missed very much. Her mother still worked a lot. Manuela often felt lonely because she had no friends. She spent almost all her time with patients. Who knows how long this life would have continued if not for one incident at the hospital. One night, Manuela was on duty. She stayed up almost all night, looking after the patients. In the morning, a scandal broke out. One of the patients, an old man named Senor Castro, was supposed to be discharged from the hospital. His grandson, a handsome young man in a suit, came to pick him up. He started gathering the old man's things and noticed that the gold watch he had given his grandfather for his 80th birthday was missing. "Where's your watch?" the grandson asked Senor Castro. The old man just shrugged. "I remember putting it in the bedside table drawer," he replied. The grandson searched all the drawers of the bedside table again, but they were empty. Then the young man moved the bed and looked behind it. There was nothing there either. "It seems the watch was stolen," he concluded and called for the nurse. A sleepy Manuela entered the ward and was immediately bombarded with accusations. The young man made a real scene, accusing the girl of taking the old man's watch. "You have no idea how much it was worth," Senor Castro's grandson shouted. Manuela's assurances that the watch would be found led nowhere. Eventually, the matter reached the chief doctor, and he decided to fire the girl. "Manuela," he said guiltily when they were alone in his office, "I believe you didn't take the watch. But I can't risk the hospital's reputation. I have to let you go." Manuela couldn't believe what had happened. She had lost her job overnight, and now everyone thought she was a thief. The girl went home in tears. Her mother was at work. Manuela took a shower and lay down, but due to the stress, she couldn't sleep. She remembered her job and the patients she had given her heart to. Now she had nothing left. The girl was sure that after what had happened, no hospital in the city would hire her. No one would risk their reputation. They wouldn't believe in her honesty. Manuela turned to the wall and cried again. Then, in her mind's eye, the old grandmother's house by the sea appeared. The girl allowed memories of warmth and sunshine to carry her far away. That's how Manuela finally fell asleep. The next day, she told her mother everything that had happened the day before. "What a nightmare," the woman exclaimed. "But it's so unfair." Manuela nodded and hugged her mother. "Maybe it's for the best. I made a decision yesterday." "What decision?" the woman asked, concerned. "I'm going to the sea. I want to return to the old grandmother's house." Manuela's mother raised her eyebrows in surprise. "But why, dear? Grandma Camila has been gone for a long time. The house is abandoned." Manuela just shrugged. "I feel drawn there. It's like the house is calling me. I know it's impossible, but still." Her mother gently stroked her hair. "It's strange. But if that's your decision, go ahead," she said. So, Manuela packed her things, bought a ticket, and set off on a journey down the path of her memories to the heart of her childhood. The house greeted her with silence. Manuela placed the old key on a dusty shelf and, leaning against the doorframe, closed her eyes. Memories flashed in her mind, long-forgotten sounds and scents of the past. There was Grandma calling her to lunch, and there was the girl hearing the song of a cricket. There was Manuela climbing the creaky steps to the attic, and there they were, she and Camila, taking a bag with food and swimming gear and heading to the sea. Manuela felt a tear slowly roll down her cheek. She brushed it away with her hand and opened her eyes. The house was still silent. Manuela went upstairs to the room where she used to live. The steps creaked under her feet as she climbed the old staircase. Entering the room, she found that nothing had changed since her childhood. The same books on the shelves, the same wallpaper with fawns on the walls, even her childhood drawing book and markers were still in the top drawer of the desk. Manuela sat down on the old chair and opened the drawing book. Flipping through it, she sighed sadly. There were many drawings of the sea, mountains, and forests, where the girl depicted herself next to her loved ones, Mom, Dad, and Grandma. She wondered how she would draw her life now. Manuela suddenly realized that she had forgotten how to dream. Work had taken not only all her time, but also her energy and simple human joys. Manuela suddenly felt terribly tired. She got up from the desk and, without even undressing, lay down on the bed. As soon as her head touched the pillow, she instantly fell asleep. In her sleep, she felt very calm and serene, something that hadn't happened to her in a long time. Working as a nurse, Manuela often worried about her patients, lacked sleep, and frequently woke up in the middle of the night with inexplicable anxiety. Now all that was in the past. Manuela slept for about 12 hours, and when she woke up, she felt refreshed and cheerful. She got up and started exploring the house. In the bathroom, Manuela found that the water was fine, and she could take a shower, which she did. Then she continued to check the state of things in the old house. The kitchen needed thorough cleaning, as did all the other rooms. Manuela found some food leftovers in her travel bag, whole grain crackers, a pack of orange juice, nuts, and had a small snack to gain some strength and energy. Then she changed into a simple t-shirt and sweatpants and got down to cleaning. It took her all day, but Manuela was more than satisfied with the result. The house became neat and almost livable. Manuela suddenly felt very hungry. Changing into jeans and a clean shirt, she took a bag and went to the store for groceries. The nearest place to buy food was a small, but clean and pleasant-looking supermarket, which also sold village milk, vegetables, and fruits. Manuela put cheese, tomatoes, eggs, muesli, and her favorite orange juice into the basket. Then she looked into another department where household items were sold and picked up fresh bed linen from the shelf. Everything in the grandmother's house smelled of dampness and needed washing. A woman about 45 at the cash register stared intently at Manuela while she paid for her purchase. "You look a lot like Senora Andrade, who died 15 years ago. She often treated my children to candies and buns." Manuela smiled at the woman. "She was my grandmother. She was always very kind." The woman tucked a curly lock behind her ear. "Oh, I see. It's a shame she's gone." In response, Manuela only sighed. She felt very sorry too. Returning to the house, she made scrambled eggs with tomatoes and cheese and enjoyed her dinner. Then she went upstairs and, after making her bed with clean linen, took a book from the shelf. It turned out to be her old children's comics about a brilliant doctor. Manuela flipped through the book, and then her eyes closed on their own, and she fell sweetly asleep. The next morning, she woke up quite early and didn't immediately realize where she was. Then the memories of the previous day returned, and Manuela suddenly felt hungry. Going down to the kitchen, she made scrambled eggs again and poured herself some orange juice. After breakfast, Manuela decided it was time to go to the attic and explore the things stored there. For some reason, her heart was pounding hard as she climbed the creaky stairs. As expected, the attic was covered in dust, cobwebs hung from the walls, making her sneeze several times. Walking across the wooden floor, she sat down on a creaky chair by the wall and spent the entire day rummaging through old things that took her back to her childhood. Each item held its own story, and she lingered over the charming trinkets for a long time. Towards evening, she noticed a small mustard yellow suitcase lying at the bottom of a large cardboard box. Manuela carefully took it out, dusted it off, and placed it on her lap. Pulling at the zipper, she opened the suitcase and saw inside yellowed papers, photographs, and, strangely, a set of surgical instruments in a transparent box. "Where did Grandma get this?" Manuela asked aloud in astonishment. She stroked the box and picked up one of the papers. It was an honorary diploma awarded to Senora Andrade for her contributions to medicine. Did Grandma work in a hospital? Manuela couldn't believe it. She picked up one of the photographs and examined it closely. It showed two people in medical attire. One was a rather attractive man of about 45 with a mustache and beard already showing gray, and the other was a young woman of about 25 with a cute dimple on her cheek. To her amazement, Manuela recognized her own grandmother. Could she really have been a doctor? But why had she never mentioned it? As far as Manuela knew, Camila had always been a homemaker, a faithful wife and ideal mother. Grandfather had always earned well, and his income was enough to keep the family and home in exemplary order. But it turned out that Grandma Camila had another life, unknown to her granddaughter, which was closely linked to Manuela's own dream. The girl was bewildered and confused. She spent late into the night looking through the photographs and papers that had been stored in the suitcase all this time. In the photos, Grandma Camila was always depicted in the hospital, surrounded by patients or other doctors and staff. And almost in every photo, there was the bearded doctor whom Manuela had seen in the first picture. It was evident that he and her grandmother shared a close relationship. But what kind? Manuela noticed a wedding ring on the doctor's finger. So he was married. The girl decided to look for something else that might answer her questions. Among the documents were many honorary diplomas and her grandmother's medical degree. At the very bottom lay a yellowed envelope. Manuela looked inside and found a piece of paper folded in quarters. She unfolded the letter and began to read. "Dear Camila, I'm sorry that I couldn't protect you. Senor Cabello is very influential, and even my connections couldn't help. I'm very sorry that you'll have to end your career as a doctor. I know that your work is your life. But Senor Cabello won't leave you alone. You heard him swear that you wouldn't get a job in any hospital in the country. Camila, I'm sorry not only that you lost your place, but also that we won't be able to see each other anymore. Perhaps you've already guessed that I..." At this very spot, the letter suddenly ended. Time had taken its toll, and instead of neat letters, there was now a smeared ink blot. Apparently, water had once been spilled on the paper. Manuela sighed in disappointment. So Camila had been removed from her position as a doctor. But why? And who was this Senor Cabello? What did he have to do with her grandmother? If Manuela had been able to read the letter to the end, she might have already known the answers to all the questions in her head. She carefully examined the envelope. The words on it were almost erased, but she could make out the address and the sender's name, Dr. Diego Lopez. The sun had set half an hour ago, and it was getting dark outside. Manuela didn't know if there was electricity in the attic, so she decided it was time to go downstairs. Clutching the letter in her hand, she headed for the exit. No sooner had Manuela descended from the attic than a plan formed in her mind. She decided to go to the address on the envelope to find the mysterious doctor and, if he was alive, ask him about her grandmother. The next day, Manuela packed the most necessary things into a small bag and went to the train station. She bought a ticket and, sitting by the window, took the envelope with the letter out of her pocket. Looking at the sender's address once more, she took out the yellowed piece of paper and reread the letter. Then she put the envelope and the letter away inside. I hope I can find out something about Grandma's past, Manuela thought hopefully. With these thoughts, she watched the beautiful landscapes flying by outside the window. In the evening, the girl arrived in the city from where Dr. Diego had sent the letter and where her grandmother might have once lived and worked. The city greeted her with a light rain, which, fortunately, was barely noticeable. However, Manuela took the rain as a good omen. She took a taxi and gave the address of the hotel she had decided to stay in. She had already booked a room there the day before. Arriving there, Manuela found the room where she would be staying for a few days clean and quite cozy. She went to a nearby cafe for dinner, then returned to her room, took a shower, brushed her teeth, and went to bed. Tomorrow morning, she had to go to the address on the envelope, so Manuela decided to get a good night's sleep. She flipped through a book of poetry she found on a shelf in the hotel lobby for a while, and then her eyes began to droop. Putting the poems aside, she turned off the light and fell asleep. In the morning, she woke up very early. Stretching, Manuela lay for a while, thinking about her grandmother, then got up, took a shower, put on fresh clothes, and left the house. Looking at the map she had installed on her smartphone, she saw that the place she needed to go was nearby, so she decided to take a walk and see the city at the same time. It seemed pleasant and quiet. There were hardly any people on the streets, and the houses she passed by stood out for their neatness and tidiness. Wealthy people live in this area, Manuela noted to herself. She leisurely reached the building she needed. It turned out to be the city hospital. Manuela's heart pounded hard. She felt she was on the right path to uncovering her grandmother's secret. The young woman entered and approached the receptionist at the front desk. Good morning. I'm looking for any information related to Dr. Diego Lopez. It seems he worked at your hospital many years ago. With these words, Manuela showed the young man a letter she was holding. He glanced at the envelope and the address written on it, adjusting his glasses. I'm sorry, I've only been working here for a short time and can't say for sure if we have any information regarding your request. But I can take you to Dr. Ana Palma. She has been here for a long time and might be able to help you. Manuela thanked the young man and followed him to the elevators. They went up to the 4th floor, and the young man led Manuela to one of the offices, which had a gold nameplate on the door that read Palma. He knocked and, hearing a hoarse female voice inviting them in, peeked inside and quickly briefed Senora Palma on the situation. Apparently, she nodded, and the young man let Manuela in, closing the door behind him. The young woman found herself in a rather spacious office. Behind a wide desk sat Dr. Palma, wearing large round glasses, apparently reviewing patient analyses. Upon seeing Manuela, Senora Palma removed her glasses and, placing them on the desk, pointed to a chair on the other side of the table. You want to know something about Dr. Diego Lopez? Manuela quickly nodded. The thing is, I believe my grandmother worked in this hospital more than half a century ago. I would like to know why she was dismissed. The only clue that ties back to the past and might shed light on its mysteries is this letter. With these words, Manuela handed the envelope to Senora Palma. She put her glasses back on and looked at it. I recognize Diego's handwriting, Dr. Ana said with sadness in her voice. Manuela leaned forward. So you know him? She breathed. Senora Palma put the envelope down, still looking at it. Knew, she sighed after a long pause. Manuela didn't ask any more questions, waiting for Senora Palma to continue. Diego passed away 5 years ago. He was my teacher and a wonderful person. Saying this, Senora Palma sighed again. He worked until the very end. He used to say that without his support, many patients would struggle a lot. Even when he started feeling really unwell, he still came to the hospital and cared for others. I'm very sorry, Manuela whispered, and hopefully added, Did you know my grandmother, Camila Andrade? Dr. Palma shook her head. Unfortunately, I don't recall, she replied. I've been working here since I moved from another city. That was about 20 years ago. Then you couldn't have known her, Manuela said sadly. What should I do now? My only hope has been dashed. Dr. Palma thought for a moment. Why is this so important to you? Manuela gathered her courage and answered. All my life, I thought my grandmother was just a housewife. But it turns out she was a doctor and was highly valued. I don't know why she had to give up her career, but I would like to find out. The thing is, I've always dreamed, and still dream, of becoming a doctor myself. Dr. Palma nodded understandingly. Now I understand. Your intention is commendable. Everyone should know everything about their past, especially if it affects the present. So I will help you. Manuela's spirits lifted. Seriously? But how? I will give you the phone number of Dr. Lopez's grandson. Maybe his family archive contains materials that could shed light on your question. That's a great idea. Manuela rejoiced. I will be very grateful to you. Senora Ana picked up her smartphone and began searching for the number. Here, write it down, she said after a few moments, and after dictating the number, added, his name is Augusto Lopez. He is also a doctor and works at his own private clinic. Manuela thanked the elderly senora and, saying goodbye, left her office. She smiled at the receptionist who had guided her to Dr. Palma as she descended in the elevator. Any good news? He asked. I hope so. Manuela replied happily and headed for the exit. Once outside, she remembered that she hadn't had breakfast yet and looked around for a cafe. Across the street, she noticed a cozy sign and decided to go in. The cafe turned out to be quite nice, and Manuela took a free table by the window. The menu was already on the table, and she quickly decided what to order. A cappuccino and a croissant with blueberries and cream cheese, she asked the approaching waiter. He smiled and, nodding, walked away. A few minutes later, he brought her order. The croissant was delicious, and Manuela enjoyed every bite of its crispy crust. The cappuccino was also good. After finishing her breakfast, the young woman took out her smartphone and opened her contacts journal. Augusto Lopez, she whispered, and taking a deep breath, pressed the call button. I hope he's available and can answer me. Manuela was lucky. The call was answered after the third ring. Hello, she heard a pleasant male voice. Good afternoon, my name is Manuela, she introduced herself quickly, adding, Dr. Ana Palma gave me your number. I would like to talk to you about something very important. It concerns your grandfather Diego and my grandmother Camila. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, then the young man replied. Okay, but I'm at work right now. Can we meet this evening, say, at 7 o'clock? Manuela was delighted at her luck. Everything was going perfectly. Of course, that works for me. Just tell me where. I'm not from around here, but I have a virtual map on my phone. The man on the other end of the line thought for a moment. Where are you staying? He asked. Manuela named the hotel where she had booked a room. Then let's meet at the Lavanda Cafe, which is a 5-minute walk from your hotel. I think it will be easier for you, and I'm driving, so I don't mind going there. Manuela sincerely thanked Augusto for his consideration. How will I recognize you? The man asked matter-of-factly. The girl closed her eyes for a moment, trying to remember what clothes she had brought with her. I'll be wearing a light blue dress. Got it. Then see you this evening at 7 at the Lavanda Cafe, the young man repeated and ended the call. Apparently, Manuela had indeed interrupted him from important work. The young woman returned to the hotel and decided to take a nap. The excitement and early rise were taking their toll. She woke up around 3 o'clock. Quickly freshening up, she decided to take a walk around the city. She left the hotel and headed in the opposite direction, where she hadn't been yet. The street led her to a large park. Manuela enjoyed walking along its paths, wondering if her grandmother had ever been there. For some reason, the young woman was sure that Camila loved this place. After sitting on a bench by the fountain, Manuela continued her walk and came to a small artificial lake, where she noticed bright orange koi fish. The fish looked quite plump. Apparently, locals and tourists loved to feed them. Manuela sat on a bench by the pond and pondered. She saw her grandmother's image again, but now she imagined her in a doctor's coat. She must have been very brave, Manuela thought inside. In those days, not every woman could become a respected doctor. So, her grandmother had a talent. She wondered if she, Manuela, would ever fulfill her dream. After sitting for a bit longer, the girl glanced at her watch. There were only 20 minutes left until her meeting with Augusto. Manuela stood up and hurried towards the park exit. She was very nervous, not knowing how the meeting with Dr. Diego Lopez's grandson would go. But as soon as she entered the cafe, all her worries disappeared. A young man with a pleasant appearance waved to her from a corner table. Manuela felt she had seen him somewhere before. The man had dark hair and a beard. Oh, of course, he looks just like his grandfather. Manuela realized. She approached the table, and before she could pull out a chair, Augusto did it for her. Manuela sat down and smiled at him. It's nice to meet you in person, Señorita, Augusto said politely. The pleasure is mine, Manuela replied. Augusto handed her a menu. What would you like to order? He asked. The girl glanced at the menu and answered. I'll have risotto and cherry juice. The man nodded and, summoning the waiter, placed the order. When the waiter left, Augusto put the menu aside and looked into Manuela's eyes. For some reason, his gaze made her feel a flutter inside. The young man was very handsome. So, you wanted to talk to me about my grandfather and your grandmother, Augusto reminded. Yes, Manuela nodded quickly, pushing aside unnecessary thoughts. She reached into her bag and pulled out a yellowed envelope. Here, please take a look. I found this letter in my grandmother's attic. It's been there for many years and is almost worn out. But the return address and the beginning of the letter miraculously survived. Augusto glanced at the envelope. That's my grandfather's handwriting, he exclaimed in amazement. I would recognize it among thousands. Manuela nodded eagerly. You can read the letter, she allowed. Augusto took out a piece of paper from the envelope and, unfolding it, began to read. My grandmother never mentioned she was a doctor. I only found out recently, Manuela said, spreading her hands. I would like to find out what happened back then and why it was a secret for so many years. Augusto thoughtfully stroked his chin. Now I'm starting to remember. Grandfather often told me that Dr. Camilo was one of the best in his hospital. Manuela raised her eyebrows in surprise. Really? So, he remembered my grandmother? Augusto nodded. Not only did he remember her, he respected her greatly. Maybe he even loved her. Manuela shook her head. I also felt there was some connection between your grandfather and my grandmother. But he was married, judging by the ring on his finger. Augusto smiled dreamily at his memories. Yes, you are right. He and my grandmother married very young and lived together for about 70 years. Manuela couldn't believe what she heard. Is that even possible? She smiled. That's very romantic. Augusto nodded in agreement. I always considered my grandparents an ideal couple, and they were. Perhaps he loved Camilo with fatherly love. It's a pity we can never read the second part of the letter, Manuela sighed. Maybe the answer was there. Augusto unexpectedly took her hand. Everything happens for a reason. Maybe it's better for this secret to remain a secret. Manuela agreed with him. At that moment, the waiter brought their order, and the young people started eating. But what about Senor Cabello mentioned in the letter? Manuela exclaimed after they finished their main dishes. As I understand it, he was the reason my grandmother had to leave her medical career. Augusto just shrugged, sipping his grape juice. I've never heard of him. Grandfather never mentioned this name in conversations with me or around me. Camila nodded understandingly, taking a sip from her glass. But I can look for some information in our family archive, added Augusto. Manuela's eyes lit up. Dr. Palma mentioned this in our conversation. So, you really will help me? I would be very grateful if we managed to find anything. Augusto finished his juice and nodded resolutely. I'll do my best. My grandfather's memory is very dear to me. And since he respected and loved your grandmother, I think in my place he would do the same for her granddaughter. Manuela sincerely smiled at the man and thanked him wholeheartedly. I'll go to my grandfather's house right now and start searching. But let me escort you to the hotel first. Manuela blushed. Oh, no need. It's very close. Still, it will make me much calmer. Manuela agreed, and after paying the bill, Augusto led her to the exit. He escorted her to the hotel and promised to call as soon as he found anything. Manuela thanked him again, tears in her eyes. She was very touched that a complete stranger cared so much for her. She went up to her room, took a shower, and lay down on the cool sheets. However, she couldn't fall asleep right away. She kept thinking about the meetings and events of the past day and was glad that things were turning out better than she expected. The next day, Manuela woke up quite late. She got up, dressed, and left the hotel to have breakfast at one of the nearby cafes. Her feet carried her to Lavanda, where she ordered an omelet with tomatoes and basil. While she was waiting for the waiter with her order, Manuela heard a message notification on her smartphone. Good morning, Manuela. I hope you slept well. I found something, wrote Augusto Lopez. The girl didn't expect things to happen so quickly, so she was very surprised and, of course, delighted. How wonderful, she quickly typed in response. At that moment, the waiter brought her order, and Manuela got distracted from her phone. When she looked at the screen again, there was already a reply. "Where are you now?" "I'm free and can come over," wrote Augusto. "Where we were yesterday, at the Lavanda Cafe." "I really liked it here," Manuela replied. "Are you in a hurry?" "Can you wait for me for about 15 minutes?" the young man asked. "I'm completely free and will wait for you," the girl wrote back. Putting her phone aside, she started on her omelet, and when she finished and the waiter took away the empty plate, a breathless Augusto entered the cafe. "I hurried as much as I could," he explained in response to Manuela's somewhat surprised look. "I really do have news for you." The girl prepared to listen, but instead, Augusto handed her an envelope. It was as worn and yellowed as the one she found in her grandmother's attic, but the writing on it was much better preserved. Most likely, it had always been kept in one place, perhaps in Diego Lopez's desk drawer. This time, Manuela recognized the handwriting. It had been familiar to her since childhood, and she still remembered her grandmother's writing style. Her letters were round and neat. Never would you think that Camila once worked as a doctor and wrote prescriptions in hasty scrawls. The letter was addressed to Diego Lopez. With trembling hands, Manuela took the piece of paper out of the envelope. Unlike Augusto's grandfather's letter, her grandmother's words could be read to the end. "Dear Diego, I am writing this letter because I want you to know the whole truth. As you have probably already heard, I have been suspended from work, but it is not my fault. It's all about Senor Cabello. He is the younger son of one of my patients. When I first saw him, he stared at me so intently that I felt uncomfortable. Since then, every time he came to visit his father, Senor Cabello brought a bouquet of flowers. One day he offered to give me a ride after my night shift, but I refused because, as you know, we are not supposed to have any kind of personal relationship with patients or their relatives. Yes, I turned him down, which greatly displeased Senor Cabello. He strikes me as a domineering man who is used to getting whatever he wants. After my refusal, he apparently decided to bribe me, showing that he is quite wealthy and prosperous. The next time Senor Cabello brought flowers and a velvet box containing an expensive necklace. I refused to accept this gift, and the man literally flew into a rage. He stormed out of my office, throwing out that I would regret my indifferent behavior. That same day he met with the chief physician and said something to him. Maybe Senor Cabello slandered me, but most likely he just bribed him. Within an hour, I was called to the chief physician, who informed me that I was fired and that I should forget about a career as a doctor forever. I left the office feeling like I was in a fog. I didn't understand what had happened and couldn't believe what was going on. It was all like a dream. In an instant, I lost my beloved job, my ability to earn a living independently, and live without my husband's help, unlike most modern girls and women. I don't remember how I got to my office, packed my things, and went outside. There, Senor Cabello was waiting for me in his car. Seeing me, he got out and approached. I silently stared at him. He started the conversation. "Now your job doesn't interfere with you going with me, right?" He smirked smugly, but I just shook my head and walked in the other direction. He shouted something after me, showered me with threats, swore that no hospital in the world would take me, but I pretended not to hear. I was only afraid that he would ambush me at home, but fortunately, everything worked out, and I got home safely. As soon as I entered the room, I started crying. I cried all day, lying in bed, and when I calmed down, I decided to write you a letter. I want you to know that there has never been anything between me and Senor Cabello, and there never will be. I say this for one simple reason: I don't want my name to be tarnished in your eyes. I will end the letter here. I am truly sorry that things turned out this way, but I still have hope. Maybe you can help me by asking your influential acquaintances. I would be very grateful to you, my dear Diego. Sincerely and with genuine friendly love, your Camila. After reading the letter, Manuela leaned back in her chair and remained silent for a long time. Augusto also kept silent, waiting for her to speak. Finally, Manuela looked at him and said, "Thank you for your help, dear Augusto. I really needed to know the truth. Now I understand why my grandmother forever hid and kept everything related to her medical career in the attic. And now I realize why she so encouraged my childhood games of hospital and my passionate desire to become a doctor. It's hereditary. Manuela suddenly wiped a tear from her cheek. I really wanted to become a doctor, but it didn't work out for me, she unexpectedly confessed and, sighing, added, all I managed to do was complete nursing courses. Grandmother would have been disappointed in me. Augusto took her hand and looked into her eyes. Manuela, grandmother would have been proud of you. I'm 100% sure of it. Manuela looked at Augusto with trusting eyes. You think so? The young man nodded in response. Is the work of a nurse any less important than that of a doctor? Her work is very important. Who, if not a nurse, will take such good care of patients? Who will suggest to the doctor what he missed? Don't think your work is worthless. You do a great job. Manuela smiled, but a moment later her face darkened again. The truth is, I forgot to say that, like my grandmother in her time, I was also fired from my job. Why? Augusto frowned. I was accused of theft, which I did not commit. Now no hospital in my city will take me. With these words, Manuela sighed heavily. Augusto looked at her thoughtfully for a few moments. Listen, Manuela. I can offer you a position at my private clinic. The salary is decent, and we can also provide you with housing since you are an out-of-town employee. What do you think about that? Manuela couldn't believe what she heard right away. Are you really ready to make such an offer? Augusto laughed. Well, what? It's not exactly a marriage proposal yet. But it's still a worthy option, right? Manuela smiled. For now? Augusto nodded. Yes, it's true. I liked you the moment I heard your gentle angelic voice on the phone, Manuela. I really would like to get to know you better. Would you mind taking a walk with me in the park tomorrow evening? We can also discuss the details of your contract. Manuela happily agreed. When Augusto escorted her to the hotel, she felt light and calm. 2 weeks later, Manuela started working at the young man's clinic, and they began to see each other almost every day. Soon, the girl and the young man started dating, and 6 months later they got married. In this story, which ended happily, there was only one mystery that Manuela occasionally thought about: what kind of relationship did Camila and Diego have? No one ever knew that in Augusto's grandfather's letter, before Manuela's grandmother spilled a glass of water on it in the distant past, it said, Camila, I regret not only that you lost your place, but also that we will no longer be able to see each other. Perhaps you already guessed that I always valued you as a student and a friend, but I must confess that I feel something more for you. Forgive me for this, as I am married. But you awakened some dormant corner of my heart that filled with tenderness and joy thanks to you. And from now on, you will forever remain in it. I ask for nothing and expect nothing but your friendship and trust. And, dear Camila, promise me that you will be happy no matter what. And I will always support you. Sincerely yours, Diego Lopez.